Hello, my name is Debbie, Owl and Gator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 32. Today is Monday, April 18th, 2022. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching, a little bit about what's going on in my life. If you're new here, welcome. I hope that you like what you see, and if you like what you see, click the subscribe button, drop me a comment, tell me how you found me, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I love reading your comments, I love interacting with you, and just sharing our love of this hobby of cross stitch. I usually try and film every 2 weeks. I didn't make it last week. We had a lot of work going on around in our house and in our yard, and I just didn't want to contend with all the noise. And in fact, today I'm going to be trying to avoid, I may have to pause this video if the gardening from our HOA comes around and starts mowing, because I don't want to have to deal with all of that noise in the video. Before I jump in and show you my stitching, I do want to do a shout out for the Under 1000 Subs Club. Someone I've watched a few videos of her, although she has been videoing or filming for and posting for the past 2 years, and that is a Little Farm Quilts, Amy. And don't be fooled by the name. While she is a quilter, she shows a lot more cross stitch, and in some videos are exclusively cross stitch. And she just has a lot of beautiful pieces that she shows and a lot of great work. So if you are looking for someone new, I suggest that you check her out. So again, a Little Farm Quilts. And with that, I'm just going to jump in and talk about my stitching. I was very goal-oriented these past 2.5 weeks and was really focused on achieving my sort of monthly plans. As you know, I participate in WIPGO, and I also participate in Letters of the Month. And I actually, for all 4 of those pieces, met my monthly goal already. They might come out later if I feel like working on them a little bit more this month, but in some ways it's kind of liberating to know that I've sort of checked off those big stitch goals that I have every month, and that for the last 10-12 days of the month I can go wild and stitch on what I want. But of course, I kind of already know what I'm going to work on. So anyhow, before I jump in and show you those pieces, I do want to say that I have some exciting news, which is I have a finish. I think I was very close to the finish last time I showed this, and now I have a finish. So this is from the Stitching Book Club. This is the Chronicles of Narnia. This is stitched on 32 count even weave, for the most part 2 over 1, with the exception of some of the back stitching, which I'll get to. And it's a 32 count even weave. The colorway is Fairy Ring, and it's from Fortnight Fabrics. I honestly don't, there is, you can see it like on the side there, let's see if I can put up something behind it so you can see it a little bit better without the light coming through it. You can see there is some very faint modeling in this, but even in person, it's very hard to see the modeling. So to be actually honest, I subscribed last year to Fortnight Fabrics 12 Shades of Gray, and the year before I did one that was sort of their neutrals, which were more in like sampler neutral colors. And I honestly, this is so subtle, which, as you know, is not normal for Fortnight Fabrics. I honestly don't know which club I got this from, but it's a really nice fabric. She had charted it on, she had stitched the model on an opalescent fabric. I didn't have any in my stash, and I have a lot of fabric right now, and so I wanted to start using some of that. So I thought this was a good substitution. It's not quite white, but it gives a nice, a little bit of texture to it. So anyhow, here's where I am now. So basically, when I was showing it last time, I had done all the full crosses here, and I had started in here, and I basically obviously finished all the full crosses in here, and then I had to do basically all the back stitching. She was deliberate in her instructions, and she talked about back stitch and long stitch, and she just sort of had the colors listed, and she didn't specify, she specified the number of strands, but she didn't specify if it was supposed to be back stitch or long stitch. And she said after the fact that she had done that deliberately because she wanted us to choose. So for the most part, I did back stitch. So the only time that I did not do back stitch was in some of these sort of in the branches here. I did all of these long stitch, even if so even if it was just like, say, a straight line, sort of horizontal line where I could have done it, I still stretched it. And then obviously I did long stitches where it wasn't, you can see in the last name, Pevensey here in the V, like the V, the legs there are long stitches because there was no way to sort of break it up and do it. But then like on the E in Pevensey, I did that as backstitch. I wasn't really sure which one I should to do, and it just sort of came naturally to do that. The only other little modifications I made, and these are very slight, on Mr. Tumnus here, she didn't have any fractionals, and I just thought to give him a little bit of softness. So like on his hips and his shoulder, and a little bit on the umbrella. And the umbrella is not backstitched, so I probably could have gotten away with not doing it, but I just didn't want that sort of stark angularity that you can get on a small figure that is full crosses. And then you can put it very pale here. I put, so that's actually the year 2022 when I actually started it and finished it, as well as my initials. And then the other thing was I didn't put my commas in. So she did have, after lion and witch, there were commas, and the only reason why I didn't put them in was I missed putting it in after lion, and it's one stitch, and I didn't want to go back and have to deal with that. I noticed it when I got to the word witch, and so like up here, I just didn't want to have to go back and deal with it, so I just left it all out. I don't think it really makes a difference one way or the other. But I included also, I know a lot of people have decided not to put in C.S. Lewis's name here, but I chose to. I think I really do like honoring the author of works if I'm going to, stitch the title and everything else in there. So I assume many of you have read this book. So obviously the symmetry, the symbolism rather of the lamppost, which is, the light and the darkness and Mr. Tumnus, and all the snow, and the crown, which is the Christian symbol for Aslan, and just really lovely. I was, the colors, obviously these colors here are not traditional tree colors, but I still really love them. And I spent quite a few days working on this. I just wanted to get to a finish. I really love Kristen's pieces, and I just wanted, and this was a SAL, and I know many people say a SAL that stands for start along, not stitch along, but I really did want to complete this within a relatively short time after the last part came out. So I just sort of within 2 weeks of the last part coming out, I went ahead and finished it, and I'm really happy that I did. I don't know how I'm going to make this a fully finished object. I am not going to make it into a pillow, whether I do some sort of self-framing or I actually get it professionally framed. I'm not really sure yet. I have a lot of time to think about that because I don't have any FFO plans in my near future. But I'm just really happy with this one, and I think it's actually my first finish of the year. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it's my first one. And so it's nice to have that under my belt. Okay, now moving on to all of my very large projects, which most likely will not be finished this year. I'll show first some of the smaller stitching that I worked on. So the first one that I will show you, this is Anzac from Long Dog Sampler and Long Dog Samplers, and I am working up here in the upper left-hand corner. And here is a picture of where I was before. And here's where I am now. So basically, this is sort of like there's Australia down here, and so this is sort of the rim, I guess the frame on the globe, so to speak. So that's why it's got that rounded, although obviously like these stars and other things coming in. So again, this was one day of stitching, but it's picking this up because it's monochromatic and it just flows so naturally. It's a quick stitch when I get going on it. And I really enjoy working on this. I would say the only thing is it is sulky, and I know there are people who absolutely love sulky threads, which is why I decided I wanted to try a monochromatic piece with sulky. And it's fine, but I'm not in love with it the way some people are in love with it, and quite frankly, I prefer DMC. But obviously, it's not that I hate it or anything like that. I just prefer DMC over this, and I love the color. I think it's just the texture, and it's not giving the best coverage. This is a 32 count even weave, and I'm using one strand, and it's, I mean, again, from here you can't tell, which is where you're going to be standing when you look at it somewhere. But when you get really close up and when I'm stitching it, I can see it. I can see the gaps. And so the whole point of doing sulky, I thought, was that you could get away with one strand. And I think maybe if I moved up to 36 count fabric, I could get away with one strand, but that probably then would mean linen. And that's not my favorite fabric. I prefer even weave or aida I prefer the even spacing of the holes. So whether it's even weave or aida, I do prefer to stitch on that. Next piece I want to show you, and I didn't get a huge amount of progress on this, but this is Huckleberry Farm by the Blue Flower. And here's where I was before. And here's where I am now. So really this was only a couple hundred stitches, and basically I discovered that up here, I knew that this bird was sort of sitting in air, but I didn't realize that I had, I had done all the other leaves in this section. I don't know why I hadn't done the leaves beneath this bird, unless I do know I've had a lot of miscounting with this project. That's how to put that. And so maybe I had done it before and pulled it out. I can't remember. I then pulled out and did the berries, these sort of purplish berries here, and there was one up here, and then I wanted to continue using that same color. So there is an alphabet. I've made a decision that I'm going to do my initials in the alphabet in a different color, so that's the same color as those darker berries. So it's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference. And then it's also the same that they have for one that says one for me, one for the basket. So I started working on that in this motif here, which is like some sort of pinwheel that will come out. And then after I sort of did all of that and was sort of getting ready to say, okay, I've hit my target, I'm going to stop working on this, I then realized I had more berries of this color up here. I didn't do them, but it means that, I basically had it, cut off 6 strands and used up all 6 of them, and then realized that I need to go back and do more. So, oh well, that's not a big deal, but it's, again, this project, I absolutely love it, but something about it just, if there's a way I can make a mistake, I find a way to make it. But again, I love it so much. Blue Flower is one of my favorite designers, that when I am stitching on it and not making mistakes, it's an absolute joy to stitch on. And to be clear, the mistakes are mine. The pattern is easy to read. It's just, I don't know, there's something about it. Maybe I just get so enthralled with it that I stop paying attention to the details. Next piece, I only put a couple hundred stitches in, but I'm happy to pick it up again. This is Midnight Vigil, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Lisa Parker, the mini version. And basically all I did here was I was working with, I believe it's 414, and I just kept going with it. So this is the reflection of the kitty face. And so basically I just put a bunch of that in here, and then a little bit over here. But again, little by little, I'm working on this. And again, as I always say before, this part, which is done here at the curtain, looks amazing, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. Just knowing this is obviously, this is a fun part of it, but it's not the most interesting. The kitty is the most interesting, and just how great this looks. And I can't wait to see just the shading in that black cat when I get to him. Next piece I want to show you is Cats in the Toy Box. As you know, this is my sort of focus piece that I made the most progress on last year, and I'm trying to make the most progress on this year. And so this is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Lesley Anne Ivory. And here's where I was before. And here's where I am now. So Basically, I am trying to pull, there were a few rogue stitches in here, and I am basically trying to, so I'll pick up that color and do whatever that rogue stitch is in here, and then pull it over. And because a lot of it's sort of been in the head of this calico as well as in the basket down here, those colors tend to pull over here. This is the handle of the basket as well. This is like a ponytail on a doll. And so it's a lot of those colors are going in there as well. Occasionally I'll get one sort of coming in there. So that's why it sort of looks like, why do I have so much done over here, but then have this big white gap? And that's because those colors are not really used over here. And I think I also did finish the beads. They were mostly done, but sort of some of these, again, these sort of where the light will reflect off the beads, I had not, there's 1 or 2 stitches in that, and just hadn't done those colors. And then when I was going back and working on the rogue stitches, that's when I picked it up and started doing that. So this is not a max color. So it's got fewer than 100 colors in this. But again, absolutely love this piece. It's such a joy to stitch on, and I stitch on it almost every evening. And when I don't stitch on it for a couple of days for whatever reason, and then I come back to it, it's just such a joy, and it's such comfort stitching. So I'm really happy to, whenever I get a chance to pull this out. Next piece I'd like to show is, I think many of you know this. This is His Eyes on the Sparrow by Heartstrings Samplery. And this is where it was before. And here's where it is now. So I am doing, this is 36 count doubloon by Picture This Plus, which is the called for fabric. And I am doing this 1/1. So basically I did pull down the border a little bit here and across here. And I know it's been a while since I've worked on this, but I have been missing one of the colors in the peacock. So, which I completed a long time ago. So I finally got that missing color and did it. And then I did a lot of work, got sort of the frame of the cow done, so to speak. Didn't quite finish with this color in the cow, but came very close to it. So this was one of my whip go draws. So very happy to have a chance to pull this out. And then I also double dipped with another challenge. I had to do 500 stitches on red flowers, and working on borders isn't necessarily my favorite thing when it's a repetitive border. So that gave me an excuse to get some of those flowers in. I think there's over 30 of these red flowers. And so, I think, and because I had like 91 stitches in each of these. So I did, I think when I did 5.5 flowers, yeah, you can see I did a half flower over there. And when I had this on the Q-snap was coming really close to the edge, which is why I didn't finish that flower. But I needed to get my 500 stitches. So, it's always good when you have, you feel like in addition to meeting your whip go goal, that you are, meeting another goal for a challenge. And when it's maybe not something that is your favorite thing to work on in a pattern, to have that as an excuse, it just makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So you have a box to check. So my goal was 1,000 stitches on this for whip go, and I achieved that. So I, again, may pull it out later, might not, depends what else is going on in the month. The next 2 pieces I'm going to show you are my pieces for Letters of the Month, which is a Facebook group where basically we're working our way backwards through the alphabet. And this month was Q and R for me. Everyone's are a little bit different because obviously if you're doing 2 letters a month, you only hit 24 letters. And so you were able to drop some of the letters. So I think I dropped U, and I can't remember the other letter I dropped. I'll get to that. But you have to do it either from the title of the pattern or from a primary object in a pattern. So, if you have a jungle scene, there's a tiny little zebra in it, you can't say zebra because it's like not a primary thing. And I'll show you what I did for that. So anyhow, this is Let Freedom Ring by Lila Studio. And just coincidentally, my 2 pieces that I had for this month, and you plan for the full year what you're going to stitch on for your 500 stitches. So I knew in April this was going to be, but they happened to be both of my whip go draws, which, as you know, is more arbitrary, in January. So I thought that was sort of amusing when I pulled it out. So anyhow, this is where I am on, here, this is where I was before. Still trying to work, remember to say that. And here is where I am now. So basically I just was working in this section down here. I filled in the center. This tree didn't have all of its branches there. I filled in the other color on the roof, and then started just doing some of the is that the eave of the roof? I just started doing some of that, and then you can also see around the window frames and stuff a little bit there. And then this is sort of one part of the building, and then this is where you go, the area where the archways are, and not evenly spaced. And it's deliberately done. I mean, she's done it according to the way the building works and the, whatever. So, but whereas like on this part of the building, once you knew once you got your rhythm down, you could just, like, okay, 3 stitches in, 3 stitches, skip, 3 stitches in, whatever. This part I had to be a little bit more careful on. So hopefully I did it right. But my next time I pick this up, I think I need to actually start working on the brickwork. It is a variegated thread, but I want to think through about what's the best way to do it. And there's a whole lot of it. I think it requires 4 skeins. I saw Gary from the Sunshine Stitchers has started this, and I can guarantee he is such a fast stitcher and an amazing stitcher that he's going to be done with this long before I finish it. I know that. And then my other piece for letters of the month, so the letter Q. And the reason why I talk about a main element was this was quilt. So this is obviously the little sparrow tugging on the string on the quilt. So this is Tug of War, charted by Mystic Stitch. And again, there are multiple companies that have this picture. So I just happen to have the one from Mystic Stitch. And I am doing it as a full coverage. So here is, because, and I know some people have just, I say that because some people have just decided to sort of get green fabric and skip the background. So here's where I was before. And here is where I am now. So even though my target was 500 stitches on this, I wanted I wanted to finish out the color that I was using. I think I was using 890, and so I wanted to finish out. So it was sort of all up in here and coming down in here, and then just where my needle took me over here, especially when I finished it, and I just wanted to finish what was on my needle. And then I picked up some 310 and worked on it, because especially starting to get down here, it's going to be a lot of 310. So I just thought might as well get a jump on it and start working on it. So sort of a little bit in here, there's still more. Especially up here where I know it shouldn't matter, but I was losing track of where I was. And I think what happened was when I worked on this, when I was still over on this page, basically when I was working on this page, I had one color left. I think it was 939, and it was probably 1,000 stitches or something. So when I knew that was the only color left, I just really, without pattern, I just picked up the book and started, the thing, and started stitching. And again, this is a paper pattern. I didn't stop to highlight. And I think I was in that mode, and so I had to do some 939 over here. I just said, okay, just continue with this color onto this page. And I think I was still in no highlight mode. And so trying to figure out, okay, this, what has been stitched. And again, it wasn't like I had done all of the 939 on this page and could just mark off that symbol. It was a lot of it sort of over here. And, so even if it continued in a row, maybe I only did 3 stitches in that row. I did that to myself. So it just took me a while. I would get lost every now and then trying to figure out where I was. So, and again, I don't really think it matters too much as long as I don't get into the area where the clothespin goes, because obviously that will be a very different color. So again, I hit my target, and I will probably put this away for a while, unless the mood strikes me to stitch on it again. And the last piece I have to show you was my other Whip Go draw, and this is Evening Romance, artwork, charted by Artecy, artwork by Mark Keithley. I don't know exactly how to say his name. Again, my target was 1,000 stitches, and here is where I was before. And here is where I am now. So if I can show you, so obviously I'm working on this page. This is page 4. And so this is where, like, you can see the sort of sun, I guess it's sunset. Obviously if it's evening, it's sunset. So sort of the colors really coming. So you can see sort of the gradation, how dark it is over there. And yes, that pink color really shouldn't be there. That was a big boo-boo I made. I had, when I kitted up my individual projects, it was like 169 and 225 because I had them done numerically, and it was supposed to be 169, which I'm sure you guys know is like a gray color, and the next color was 225. So I knew I was working on 169 with a certain symbol, but I accidentally pulled out 225, and it was early enough on in the process that like nothing was coming together. You couldn't really see what it was, so I wasn't really paying attention. And it was only, I think I did that stitching session and probably did, almost 200 stitches. And then I realized I made my mistake, and I didn't feel like pulling it all out. So I left it in and said, if it looks really bad when I am done, I will go back over with the other color with 169, but it doesn't really matter. It should be a little bit darker over here, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not like it messes up the trees. But I do like that effect of going from sort of the darkness over here to the lightness. So I got to put in some colors here. And so some of these like yellows and rust colors, and then some of these darker colors here as well. Just getting into that one of the evergreens. So this is again another paper pattern. So while I really enjoy the picture and like seeing it come together, at times it can be a slog. And I worked on this, I think, for 3 days and put in a little over 1,000 stitches. And when I was done, I was done. I was supposed to use this for a challenge for magical stitches starting this week. And I said, nope, not going to use this one. I'm going to pull out Hawker & Hollow. I needed like a winter scene or rain. And I said, your Hawker & Hollow has that. I'm going to do that because that's going to be easy stitching. This is very confetti heavy with a paper pattern. And again, I love the way it looks. I don't mind stitching on it a little bit at a time, but I think I burnt myself out a little bit with 1,000 stitches over such a short period of time. But again, I am also very happy that I met my goal on this for Whip Go, and that it's, by April 17th, not only did I get a finish, I met both my Whip Go goals and both of my letters of the month goals. So I still have a few, my personal goals that I want to meet for the month. But I'm really happy that I was able this month to work to sort of get those sort of assigned goals, and I put that in quotes because this is, it's a hobby, we're meant to enjoy it, but that I was able to sort of get those done, and that sort of leaves it a little bit more to chance what I want to work on. Obviously, I still am using my games to help guide my stitching, but it's not this project this time. It's what project do I have, that meets that. And like for magical stitches, for example, we don't know what the acrostic is going to be for the last week. But I can choose once I get there. Obviously I need to find objects with those letters, but I will have more freedom to choose what I want. I won't be like, oh, how do I fit Let Freedom Ring into those letters? I can sort of say, you know what, I just want to work on cats in the toy box, and so let's hope there are lots of B's and C's for basket and cat and doll and P for penguin. I mean, that thing's got so many objects I could easily fit a lot of letters in there. Anyhow, that is all I have to show you in terms of what I have stitched. I am now going to move into plans, and I realized last time I totally forgot to do the plans. I don't know what that was about, but And I participate in No New Starts, but I'm doing the Work Your Whips, which means we occasionally do get new starts, so don't let the title fool you. And so I have earned now 2 starts, one because I finished a project. So I finished the Chronicles of Narnia, which was considered a medium project, so I can start a medium or a small project. You can, for that, if you finish something, you can start something else with the same size or smaller. And then I also have another one if you successfully completed your quarterly check-in, which meant that you kept your album up to date, then you earned another freebie. So I have earned that. I'm pretty sure what I'm going to do for that, but I'm not ready to start that. So when I get closer to that, I will show you. But here is what I'm going to use to replace the Chronicles of Narnia. And because I love to read, I thought, based on a book, why don't I pick something else based on a book? Not really. That's not why I chose this. But this is Reading is Magical. This is from the World of Cross Stitch. I want to say it's December. It's definitely a December one because there's a Christmas one. I don't see the year on it very quickly. It's either 2019 or 2020. But I've always really loved that pattern. But I'm going to be making some substantial color changes to it. So the first thing was when I went to a retreat last year, I picked up this gorgeous piece of fabric, and this is from Valkyrie Stitchworks, and love the fabric. And it was definitely sort of on a whim purchasing it, and then I came home and said, it's lovely, but what am I going to stitch on it? Because you can tell for my smaller projects, I don't always stitch on fabric that is this bold. And I thought, but when I saw this, I thought, this could work really well. It's got, obviously it has the lighter colors in there, but the dark part as well. But this is more, obviously you can tell magenta and pinks and stuff like that. But the colors in Reading is Magical, they don't really work. I don't think red would be a good color on that. And so then I said, okay, let's modify some of the colors. And in Magical Stitches, they have a year-long DMC challenge where basically at the beginning of the year, they drew 52 numbers and they said, put 100 stitches on anything you want in this particular color. And you can do one a week, or you can skip a few weeks and you can go back, but you have to do them in that order. And you also can't work ahead. So like, you can't just, right now, I don't know, we're in April. You can't pick a color, like you can't do everything up to this date and then do the next 4 ones and the next 4 colors, which are supposed to be over 4 weeks in the next 4 days. But if you're like most people, you haven't stayed up to date, you can go back and do it. And I basically hit a color that I do not have in any of my current patterns, and I didn't want to start something just to have that color, but I thought, well, if I'm changing the colors in this anyhow, and unfortunately I don't think I have the colors close at hand, I thought, you know what, I'm going to use some of the colors, because I had gone through at the beginning of the year and sort of matched projects to those. And, I don't necessarily, if I have 5 projects with that color, I didn't say which project I'm going to do, but in my mind, I listed those projects. So when I get closer to it, to see if I can match it. So what I've decided to do, and so there are 4 colors I didn't have any matches for, and then probably a few others where I know, like I have them in Little Cake Shop, which is a max color. And so the likelihood of me getting anywhere close to where that color is, knowing that it's not, there are over 100 stitches in that color, but not anywhere close to where I am, and they probably themselves are not close together. I thought maybe it's wise to do it somewhere else. So let me see, I'm a little sticky. So I put on a sticky note, and I'm replacing 5 colors. So basically the colors that I'm replacing, I'm replacing all of the reds. So there's a 666 and a 907. I'm replacing those with some pinks. So the 666 is 957. And I'm really frustrated with myself that I don't have, oh, no, here it is. Sorry, excuse me here. So I can show you. So basically it's pinks and greens what I'm putting in here. in lilac, I guess, to a certain extent. So the next color is that we had to do, I think it's 957. So this was like somewhere in like March, and so I've stalled out. So this little pink color here that even in Little Cake Shop I was surprised, which is a ton of pink, doesn't have this. And so I'm going to use that for like the lettering on there. So that should work out really nicely. And then there's sort of a contrasting color that goes with it, which is supposed to be like a raspberry 907. And so I'll use 962. And that also is another color that I didn't have, which really, again, surprises me that I don't have anything with that. So, you know, again, one is supposed to be sort of not highlighting, but like shading, I guess that's the word. So the 962 will shade the 907. So again, not a huge difference, but there's not supposed to be. And that's all in the lettering, I think a little bit in one of the, I don't really want to call that a rainbow, that banner, the colors. So I you know, once I sort of decided that wasn't really a rainbow, I didn't have to stick with the colors of the rainbow. So it's going to be like a nice banner with stripes. And then on, here it is. I don't have it in a baggie yet. We have 24. There's one in there that's not coming up at all. See if it'll work better on this. You can see a little bit. It's a very pale lilac, for lack of a better word. And so I'm using that instead of 211. So I will use the 210. But again, this is just a straight out substitution, and this was an excuse to use this for the DMC challenge. And then the other two colors that I didn't have were two greens. So actually I don't, yeah, so this is 955. Again, I actually have this. This is one that does appear in Little Cake Shop, but it's not a main color. And so I thought I could spend a lot of time trying to figure out where this is, or I could just substitute it in here. And then this is 701, which I believe also was one that I didn't have any projects on. So here's my little cheat sheet that I made for the DMC challenge. So you can see all the initials of the projects, which sometimes I have to be honest, I look at it and be like, what is, you know, SLBL? And then I realize it's, you know, simple little big love. And one of the things I like about this challenge, and it's one that I think intrigues me more than, I mean, I love doing the prompts with my challenges, but one of the things that intrigues me about this challenge is it sort of forces me to look at my projects a different way. So it's not just stitch with red. I've got tons of projects with red or orange or any other color. It's use this specific color. And despite the fact that I started the year with 49 projects, I still had 4 colors that I had no projects with those colors. And that, I mean, and there's other projects that I don't have a lot of those colors. So anyhow, so I'm using these 2 greens. One is replacing 16 and one is replacing 777. So that'll be a lot of fun. Again, here's where I am now. Reading is magical. So I do plan on starting this this upcoming week. So I hope to have some progress for you to show you. And then I will continue on with some of my other projects that I didn't work on the past 2 weeks because I was very focused on WIPCO. So High Intensity, which is my Jaguar, will come out. And I will work on that, as well as some of my other full coverages like Little Cake Shop and Magic City. And then we'll see where my interest takes me. I sometimes feel, that I do love stitching to my prompts, but then I sometimes look at my basket of projects that I haven't worked on for a while. And because my smaller ones tend not to call to me as much when I'm looking at a prompt and say, oh, well, they're all just sitting over there, and maybe I should have done my WIPCO of smalls as opposed to WIPCOs with all my big projects. But, that goes. And I went through all of my projects yesterday because I am still having one project that is gone, MIA. I don't know where it is. I know I had it when I did my WIP parade in December. So and I basically stitch in one room, and that was one that's on black fabric. So in the evenings I do stitch in my living room, sit with my husband and watch TV, but I don't bring a black fabric in there because the lighting, I like to stitch on it during the day when I have natural light, blah, blah, blah. You all know that. And I have gone through and I've looked, so it basically has to be in one room, and I've looked, did it drop behind something, and I just can't find it. It will turn up, and my craft room, as I call it, is our guest bedroom, and we do plan to do a little bit of work in here, sort of make it a little bit more, space it around a little bit more. We have mattresses right now, but we don't have a bed frame for those mattresses. And again, I've lived in this house for a couple of years, but we haven't had guests because of the pandemic. We might start getting them again as people are traveling, so I want to make our guest room a little bit more friendly, but I also want to make it a little bit more craft friendly, because the reality is I spend more time crafting in here than we ever will have guests in here. So, but having said that, I just have a little bit of haul. So I got my color and cotton. So here's it. Here is what it is. It's 32 count even weave. The colorway is sunny side up. So I don't know if they call it their colorful club or whatever, but I did switch to that one a few months ago. The only thing I will say, it's a beautiful color. It's yellow. The fabric last month was called Mango Tango. So while they are different, this one is like a nice sunny yellow, and that one had a little bit more orange undertones. They're quite similar, in the same family. So I'm hoping the piece I get next month will be in a different color family. And again, I don't care if it's this is, both of those are warm. I don't care if it's another warm color. I'm fine with that. But just, and I am obviously partial to my blues and my greens. But, how about a nice peach or something else, just a little, just to make it a little bit different. And then the only other piece I have is from, I did join the Bird Crush Club. And I was very excited to hear, because I did not, I joined starting in February. I didn't get one of the initial spots. And I was very excited to hear that she is going to at some point make just the patterns available. If you miss any of them, or if you don't want the whole club, but you just want to get the patterns, it may be in 2023. And I'm fine with that because I haven't started stitching any of these. So I was very excited because I did not get the Stellar J, which is gorgeous. So anyhow, this is the black-throated gray warbler. I want to make sure I get his name. He's such a noble looking bird. I wanted to make sure I got his whole name correct. So that's where he is now. So that's the actual picture of the bird. And here is the stitch version of it. And she always includes the specialty floss in the bird. So this is a Threadworks. You can see there, that's used to embody the bird. So again, they don't, Threadworks just has a number, so I'm not going to read the whole number out to you. Don't have my glasses on, but it's a nice color. That works, really well for a bird that is less colorful, but nonetheless still amazing looking. That is all of the stitching I have to show you. I have not read any books that have rocked my world, so I'm not going to share those with you, but I'm hoping that I have one that'll finish in the next few days as an audiobook, and I'm over 80% done, so I know it's great. It's a classic novel, so I'll share that with you next time and give my thoughts. In terms of what we've been watching, we have been going back, and we had started quite a few years ago when it first came out. We watched the first 2 seasons of Orange is the New Black, and we decided that we wanted to go back and finish the series. So we did watch the first 2 seasons, and we now, I think we're somewhere in season 6, and there are 7 seasons. I love the concept behind the show. I think it's important. People who commit crimes and get, depending obviously on what the crime is, but, incarceration, you can't just, engage in unlawful behavior and not expect there to be consequences. But having said all of that, it, first and foremost, it shows that, yes, you may have committed a heinous criminal act, but that doesn't mean that every single facet about you is horrible and heinous, that you are a person, and your good sides and bad sides to you and all of that. And it shows all of the characters as humans with backstories, and that some of them come from very impoverished backgrounds. The deck was stacked against them. Others did not come from that background, and they still end up in prison. But just sort of showing, they go back and they show the circumstances and not, and how it may have led them. And some of them, it's just that, what do I want? My parents weren't nice to me. I came from a wealthy family. My parents aren't nice to me, so I'm going to become a heroin addict and commit crime so I can support my habit. You have those stories too, but it's still. It's still nice to see that. And the character who is the lead, who actually is the one on whom it's not, the character in the show is not her necessarily. It's based on her, but it's not her. I can't stand that character. She is the worst character in the whole show. The one that you're just like, whatever, spoiled little rich child, and whatever. But nonetheless, the other characters are all very intriguing. Having said that, I think they never thought there were going to be 7 seasons, and so they've made a decision to just really stretch things out, and it gets a little bit tedious. Season 5, which is basically takes place over 4 days, and yes, it's a big event, but it did need to have 13 episodes, and I think I'm glad that it looks like season 7 will move the story along. So I'm hoping that will happen. And again, I've enjoyed it. I think at times, I know parts of it are meant to be satire, but I don't think it shows, it talks about prisons, especially private prisons in the United States. And if those of you who don't live in the US, there has been a push to privatize so that while prisons are funded by whether it's a state or federal government, depending on the facility, that they do contract out, and private entities actually manage the prisons, and then these are for-profit entities, and so they are obviously trying to minimize costs minimize costs in order to maximize their profit on the contracts, and that leads to certain abuses that perhaps if they were as a former federal employee for decades. I just remember when I started and the work I did, I dealt a lot with our budgets and things like that. And working with my colleagues from the private sector when we all started, and they were trying to say, well, how do you know if you succeeded? And they said, well, you've met your budget. But people come from the private sector, well, but don't you want to do better and not spend all of your money so that, somehow the bottom line, they said there is no, you don't want to exceed what you have. But members of Congress and senior leaders in the executive branch have made a decision. This is the money you have to spend, and they've told you how to spend it. And if you shouldn't be buying frivolous things. But as a federal employee, I can guarantee that there are good ways to spend that money, not on frivolous things, but whether it's training or other things that are really important to make operations in the government serve better. Anyhow, I'm going to get off that soapbox now, but nonetheless. It's a big debate in the United States that can prisons be run more effectively if you have someone monitoring the bottom line, or does it lead to more abuses because they are so focused on the bottom line and not actually providing the services that they are required to under the contract? It's a big question. I'm not necessarily here to give you my opinion or answer it one way or the other, and the show touches upon that, but I don't think it does it in too much of a comical way, and I don't think it addresses the seriousness of the issue. And and while there are some compassionate guards in this, it shows, when guards are evil, they're truly evil in this show, and they're allowed, and there's no consequences to their behavior, and yet the guards who are good get fired. So those kinds of things happen. But anyhow, so that is all I have for you today. Before I stop rambling about more television shows, I am going to a retreat, a day retreat at the end of this month. It's hosted by not my personal local Lila workshop, but the one that's an hour away in Ocala, and so I've got a day pass. So that is Brick City Cross Stitch. So I'm really excited to be going to that. In like a week and a half. And I know Mary, the Daydream Stitcher, is going to be there. And so she and I have done a lot of, chatting through Flosstube, and as well as a little bit of IMing, IMing through Instagram, direct messages. But it'll be really nice to meet her in person. So I'm looking forward to that. So with that, I don't know if I'm going to come back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but I look forward to coming back and sharing my stitching with you. Until then, happy stitching.